I thought it might be helpful if I just kind of went over, what it means to say I'm sorry or to feel, um, like you've been forgiven or that you can forgive somebody else. I think we get so caught up in what the world, says. It's like, oh, if they say, I'm sorry, you're going to feel better. And then that doesn't help always, does it? Because that's not the real issue. There's a piece of that. We like to know that the other person has gotten something or understood something or, is able to communicate and we've been heard. But I don't think it's that helpful in the long run. So I think that what we're really searching for, whether we're the one saying we're sorry or the one that's wanting to, you know, somebody to apologize to us, what we're really looking for is information. Because we've been taught and trained from early on through media, whatever, that what other people think of us gives or takes away our value. And so when someone does something to us, or we feel like they've hurt us in some way, we feel like if they just say they're sorry, we're going to feel better. But what we really are needing as a human being is an understanding of what really took place. Now, we can't always depend on that to come from the person who did something to us that we think they may not be in a place to be able to give you that information. So we have to be able to provide that to ourselves. And one of the ways that we can do that is by asking questions, and not loaded questions like trying to get them to admit, not that kind of stuff. We want to kind of ask questions to see where they were coming from, and why they made the choices that they did, or the words that they did, or whatever. And people today will say, oh, well, they're just making an excuse. That's what they're doing. They're just making an excuse for their bad behavior. Well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe what they're doing is telling you where they were at that point, and maybe that conversation will allow them to kind of reevaluate where they were at that time and offer some, healing for them as well. But the main thing to remember is when someone does something to us, it's rarely about us. It's usually about them. And if we understand that and we play with that, then we can just have some level of peace and understanding. Because suffering, when someone does something to us, the suffering that we feel really, truly deep down is because we feel like we're not understood or seen correctly, and that somehow we start panicking inside. And so we need to search for more information. Now, if we can't ask that person for more information, and they're not available, or mentally, physically, spiritually, wherever they are, they could be passed away, then it's up to us to go into our imagination, and we need to, and a controlled way. We've already been in the imagination and the uncontrolled way, right? You don't like me, I'm not good enough, it's your fault, blah, 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 blah. If my parents were just better, then I would be a better person. All these things that humans do, we have to blame, right? So if we can use our imagination in a positive way and say, have I ever done or said anything like that before? What caused me to do it? Was it really about that person, or was it where I was at that time? We have an opportunity to use our conscious mind, our conscious creation inside of our head and inside of our soul, to be able to really put ourselves in other people's shoes, and to really, go through our mind, through all the different cracks and crevices in there, all the all the little clouds of information that's locked away in there, and open those up, and that can also allow us to heal. Now, what if we're the one that did the thing? What if we're the one that said it or did something, and then, somebody comes to us and talks to us? Well, don't panic. Calm down and have a conversation. They're not saying you're a horrible person. They might be, but they probably don't mean it. And even if they did, reverse what I just said before about if somebody did something to you. Again, it may not even be about you at this point. If they're not looking for clarity and they're not really looking for a solution, then, you can offer it, but then you have to be mature enough and confident enough to be able to back up and let them hold their own anger and their own hurt. This is something that as humans we don't like to do. We want to fix everything for everybody, and we can't. And we shouldn't, but we can try. The other part of if we're the one that did something is when we realize it, and maybe the other person has never even said anything, but we know, right? It came to our mind. And we can either reach out to that person and tell them that we're sorry. Now, what does that mean? I'm sorry. Well, okay, for me, that doesn't mean a whole lot. When I'm saying I'm sorry to somebody, what I'm really saying to them is, what do you need from me to have peace? What can I impart to you for you to be able to have joy and confidence in your life again? Is there anything that I can do? That's what I mean when I say I'm sorry. And I would hope that we would all look at it more that when we communicate, it's not about being a good or bad person or right or wrong person. It's about understanding. And true understanding comes to us when we seek to understand others. It allows us to see ourselves even from a different perspective, which I think is so cool and so powerful. How else can we learn but by sometimes hurting ourselves or others? We do learn that way, don't we? We learn through that suffering that we feel. We're like, oh no, I can't do it anymore. Well, you shouldn't. Fix it. You don't have to stay that way. So that's kind of the good news is, life is about us exploring and using our self-discovery techniques, right? We get to go in there and really find out what the belief patterns are. Why did we say that horrible thing to that person? What was really going on? What caused it? Is that appropriate? Is that belief pattern helping us? What do we need to do to be free of that? What do we do every day? What do we check off every day in our life that we're ensuring ourselves that we're walking in a new direction? So I hope that gives a little bit of comfort and help to anyone that feels like they need justification or understanding or whatever. In my line of work, I've worked with a lot of people that have had family members that have been murdered, even things like that. And they keep thinking in court, they'll say to me, well, when that person gets put in prison, I'll feel better. And I'm like, no, maybe for 2 minutes, but it's not going to help, because the suffering that you're feeling is not going to be alleviated by justice going to that person. It may help you to know that they can't hurt another person. But you have to do your own internal healing, and you have to find those pieces yourself. Yes, friends and family are there to help support us through that and to give us some new ideas maybe. Don't just vent to everybody. Don't do that. I've done that in my life. It doesn't help. If you're going to talk to someone, get their perspective. Maybe they see something you don't see. But I've spent a lot of my life, a chunk of my life now, hearing people suffering. And our suffering always goes back to belief patterns and expectations that are not healthy or appropriate or even accurate. And it's like I tell people, you can be as right as rain, and it doesn't mean you're going to have peace with that if you don't find the correct way of seeing yourself and others. So hope this helps. And I'm going to try to post more often. Love you. Bye.